This video is part of a series of videos covering the construction of my combination garden shed woodshed. In the previous video, I completed building out the roof, so at least now we'll keep the worst of the weather off. And with that done, the next step is to make the floor deck. I'm undertaking this project in part as a learning exercise. It's the first timber frame building that I've designed and built from start to finish, and I was hoping the smaller frame would be a good test bed. It's the first time I've used square rule timber framing practices. The floor I'm making in this video is definitely overkill for a shed, but this too is practice for a future project. I hope to build a small timber frame cabin and plan to include a traditional solid wood tongue and groove floor deck in that. For the floorboards, I started with the same 1.5 inch rough cut poplar lumber that I used for the roof deck. But this time I will joint and plane each board to a smooth finished thickness of 1.25 inches. I used boards of various widths to maximize the yield from the material I had on hand. It was a ton of work dimensioning the lumber. In the process, I filled 4 40-gallon trash bags with wood shavings. At least these will come in handy as bedding for the chicken coop. So after what seemed like forever spent in material preparation, I now have enough boards all jointed and planed and jointed and cut to width for the floorboards. And I'm ready to start cutting the tongue and groove. You can see from my sample piece here, I've got a 3/8 by 3/8 inch groove, a 3/8 inch by 5/16 tongue, and ideally I'd have tongue and groove shaper cutters for the shaper, but those are pricey and I couldn't find a good set for 1.25 inch thick floorboards. They're typically available for 3/4 inch floorboards. So I've improvised. I'm cutting the groove using the dado head on my table saw, and then I cut the tongue using 2 passes with a rabbiting head on the shaper. So let's show you how that's done. Come over to the shaper and take 2 passes to cut the tongue. There you have it. It's a lot of work for an 8-foot by 12-foot floor. If I were to do much more material, I think I'd consider adding a power feeder that I could use on the table saw and the shaper. So all that remains is to take each of these boards and put a slight chamfer on each of the tongues. I'll do that at my workbench. These holdfasts come in handy just as setting long boards. If you need to, if the board's got some twist in it or something, you can tap the holdfast to hold it in place. I probably won't need that for most of these. And I'll just put a slight chamfer on each of these tongues, just by hand, with a block plane, so that they slip together a bit more easily during assembly. So the last thing to do is to cut all the individual boards to length. The floor joists in the timber frame sill floor are 2 feet on center. So I've cut all the boards either 2 feet, 4 feet, or 6 feet nominally, all a bit long so I can cut them to exact lengths. I'll do that now. For the 2-foot boards, I'll first square one end up on a miter saw. And then I've set a stop block at 2 feet, just using my sliding panel cutter. For the 4-foot pieces, I'll do the same thing, sort of. I'll square up one end on the chop saw. On the other end, I've set up a stop block at 4 feet. One of my projects coming this winter is I want to rebuild this chop saw station, and I will incorporate a sliding T-track with flip-up stops to make this sort of thing easier. Starting to get dark early. Let me show you what I'm up to here. For the first course, I've used my widest plank. I have left the groove off. The starting side has just got a tongue on one side, so we'll lay a tongue board first. I'll notch out for each of the posts. I got 3 pieces here, a 6-foot, 4-foot, and 2-foot, so each will have 1 or 2 notches in it. And I will just go in, now that I've got them all marked out, and do that on the bandsaw. Alright, so with the last of my daylight for today, I think I should be able to just get this first course of boards down. Since I'm going to be nailing against this one, I want it to be pretty solid. I'm going to put a screw in to the sill. If I decide later I want to be super fastidious, I could come back later and plug these holes, but I really should remind myself occasionally that this is a shed. Alright, and then tomorrow we'll start laying and nailing the full set of floorboards. I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow, so good thing we got a roof. I got the first course installed last night. I got the next course laid out here so the seams don't interlock. And I screwed this course down, but I think I want to put a nail in there on the front edge to hold it down as well. Seems to be seating in there quite nicely. Alright, so that one in, put the next board in place, scrap board, so I can pound on a little harder. There we go. Alright, that looks promising. In full disclosure, I have to admit that I'm not entirely sure making a floor this way for an outdoor shed is a good idea. The shed is covered, but I'm a bit concerned that the floor may buckle with seasonal wood movement. Now, the lumber wasn't fully dry when it went down, so my hope is that small gaps will open up over the first season and then close again when the more humid summer weather hits. Time will tell, and I'll update you in the comments on this video after a season or two. I will say I'm very happy with the finished look of the floor. I think this would look really nice in a future cabin. So to this point, this learning experiment feels like a success. I did add these trim pieces on top of the floor, both to act as nailers for wall siding and in hopes that they'll serve to hold down the floor and resist buckling to some degree. In the next video, we'll close in the garden shed with board and batten siding and put up rails on the woodshed side to contain firewood while allowing for air movement. If you got this far, thanks for watching, and I hope that you'll check back for the next video in the series.